Italy, spring. The air is still cool, yet the sun begins to warm the ancient streets. In such places, where time seems to stand still, life flows leisurely. People know each other by name, greet one another on the street, discuss trivialities, and believe that their world is securely shielded from the storms of the bustling city. However, it is here, in this idyllic silence, that an event transpired which shook not only a small provincial town but the entire nation. What initially appeared to be a tragic accident unfolded into a narrative rife with hidden facets, deception, and chilling brutality. Every detail of this case, every piece of evidence, and every testimony wove into a complex tapestry where the truth was not immediately discernible. Was it betrayal? A flash of anger? Or a meticulously crafted plan? What transpired on that clear day when one of the local families set out for a stroll and never returned home unchanged? How many faces can a person conceal, even one who seems so familiar? This tale is not merely about a crime. It is a story of the hidden fractures that spread across the strongest, seemingly unbreakable bonds. Of a truth that is too often feared to be spoken. And of how even the quietest town can become a place where silence is suddenly replaced by a loud whisper. Melania Rea was born on August 18, 1981, in the tranquil Italian town of Somma Vesuviana, nestled at the foot of Vesuvius. Her childhood was enveloped in the love and care of her parents, who instilled in her family values and a desire for independence. She grew up in a close-knit family that always prioritized education and personal development. From a young age, Melania exhibited kindness and empathy. During her school years, she distinguished herself as a diligent student with a passion for the humanities. Her parents took pride in her achievements and supported her every endeavor. After graduating from high school, Melania chose to pursue a degree in foreign languages at the University of Naples, where she excelled. She mastered English and French, which later became the foundation of her professional career. Upon completing her studies, Melania embarked on a career in tourism, aligning with her inclinations and education. She relished traveling and immersing herself in new cultures, which enabled her to excel in her responsibilities. Colleagues noted her amiability and professionalism. Yet, the true essence of her life remained her family. Melania dreamed of a strong relationship characterized by love and understanding, and this dream soon became a reality. In 2007, Melania met Salvatore Paralisi, a military officer stationed in Italy. Their acquaintance swiftly blossomed into a romantic relationship that seemed perfect. In 2008, the couple wed. A few years later, they welcomed a daughter, Vittoria, who became the center of their small world. At first glance, the Paralisi family appeared to embody harmony. Melania devoted herself to caring for her daughter while maintaining warm relationships with her parents and friends. However, beneath the facade of an ideal marriage lay tension and unresolved issues. Melania often confided her worries to close friends, though she endeavored to maintain an optimistic outlook. Friends observed that at times she appeared troubled and preoccupied, particularly in the months leading up to the tragedy. These details, initially seeming insignificant, would later emerge as crucial elements in the investigation. Shortly before the tragic events, unsettling signs began to manifest in Melania's life. Although her family outwardly appeared happy, close friends noted that Melania occasionally expressed her doubts and suspicions. Salvatore was often preoccupied with his duties, and his frequent deployments and demanding schedule left Melania feeling isolated. Over time, her anxiety intensified. Some friends recalled that Melania hinted at possible infidelities on her husband's part. She frequently lamented the lack of attention from Salvatore and questioned his commitment to their family. Simultaneously, she tried to withhold too many details, as if fearing to air family troubles beyond the confines of their home. Nevertheless, despite these challenges, Melania continued to be a caring mother and devoted wife. She hoped that, in time, all issues would be resolved. Her primary goal remained the preservation of her family for the sake of her daughter. April 18, 2011, began as an ordinary day. Melania, Salvatore, and their daughter spent the morning together. The family decided to take a stroll in a park near their home. The events of that day, which initially seemed unremarkable, would later become the subject of intense scrutiny by investigators. After lunch, Melania and Salvatore discussed potential family outings. According to Salvatore, they chose a small park in the Pian Rollo area, not far from Ascoli Piceno. This location was known for its tranquil atmosphere, making it ideal for a walk with a child. However, as it would later be revealed, not all aspects of this story were truthful. Around 3:00 p.m., Salvatore recounted that Melania mentioned needing to step away briefly to use the restroom. She wandered off toward a wooded path and did not return. After some time, concerned by his wife's absence, Salvatore began calling for her and searching the park, but to no avail. At that moment, he decided to seek assistance. Salvatore Parolisi contacted the police around 4:00 p.m. to report his wife's disappearance. He claimed that Melania had vanished in mere minutes, which seemed peculiar in such a sparsely populated area. The police initiated preliminary searches, but no information indicating Melania's whereabouts was uncovered. The following day, volunteers and rescue services joined the search efforts. Extensive forested areas surrounding the park were scoured by groups, yet no trace of Melania could be found. This disappearance raised numerous questions. How could a grown woman vanish in such a vast territory, leaving her husband and child for merely a few minutes? The public and media began to actively cover this enigmatic story, exerting pressure on the police. Meanwhile, Melania's family, her parents and friends joined the search. They expressed doubts regarding the official account of events provided by Salvatore. His narrative appeared overly simplistic, as if he were attempting to evade certain details. 2 days passed in fruitless searches. Finally, on April 20, 2011, a chilling discovery was made in a forested area near the small village of Collateral. The lifeless body of Melania Rea was found. The location of the discovery was approximately 10 kilometers from the park where, according to Salvatore, she had disappeared. This contradicted the initial account, as it seemed unlikely that Melania could have traversed such a distance on her own. The discovered body immediately attracted the attention of experts. Melania's body bore 35 stab wounds, indicating a brutal and cold-blooded nature of the crime. Investigators speculated that the murder did not occur at the site of the boat's discovery, but rather at another location, after which the body was transported to the forest. In addition to the wounds, experts noted strange traces on Melania's clothing and remnants of household chemicals, leading to suspicions of an attempt to destroy evidence. This fact bolstered the theory of a premeditated crime. The news of the murder shocked Italy. The press portrayed the case as a glaring example of domestic violence or an attack by an unknown assailant. The public expressed condolences to the family, particularly to little Vittoria, who was left without a mother. However, amidst the grief, questions regarding Salvatore's possible involvement grew louder. His behavior in the initial days following his wife's disappearance struck many as unnatural. He displayed no overt emotions, avoided communication with the press, and provided contradictory statements. These early inconsistencies became a catalyst for investigators, who began to scrutinize Melania's husband closely. In addition to the primary theory of an attack by a stranger in the woods, the police also considered the possibility of a crime stemming from familial conflicts. After the discovery of Melania Rea's body, the police began to focus on reconstructing the events leading to her death. A key aspect of the investigation was to either refute or confirm Salvatore Parolisi's account. His claim that Melania had vanished in the Pianeroli Park found no corroboration. Surveillance cameras on the route to the park did not capture their vehicle, and several witnesses present in the park that day reported seeing neither Melania nor Salvatore with the child. Investigators meticulously examined the site of the boat's discovery. Forensic experts concluded that the murder had occurred outside of that forest. The presence of blood traces on Melania's belongings and their absence around the body supported this hypothesis. A theory emerged that the body had been brought there to cover up the crime. In the initial days following his wife's death, Salvatore faced intense pressure from investigators. Despite his claims of love for Melania, his behavior was peculiar. He avoided public displays of grief, often became confused when recounting the events of the day of her disappearance, and raised questions with his calm demeanor. As the police delved deeper into his personal life, unexpected facts came to light. It was revealed that Salvatore Paralisi was leading a double life. At the time of the murder, he was involved in a long-term relationship with another woman, Ludovica Peruzzi, who served in the same military unit as he did. Ludovica confirmed that she was aware of Salvatore's marriage to Melania but believed his promises of divorce. This fact radically shifted the direction of the investigation. Melania's friend recalled that she had suspected her husband of infidelity but lacked direct evidence. This, according to investigators, could have contributed to the growing tension in their relationship. The theory that the murder was committed by someone with a personal motive gained traction. Salvatore's phone records and messages became crucial evidence. Analysis revealed that on the day of Melania's disappearance, he had multiple phone calls with Ludovica. These calls sharply contrasted with his assertions that he had been occupied with a family outing all day. Furthermore, microscopic traces of a substance used in military chemistry were found on Melania's clothing and body. The investigation suggested that this might indicate contact with someone associated with the military, further intensifying suspicions against Salvatore. Additionally, discrepancies in his alibi emerged. He could not clearly explain his whereabouts between 1:00 p.m. and 3:00 p.m. on the day of the murder. By May 2011, Salvatore officially became the prime suspect in the case. The pressure from investigators and the public intensified. He was repeatedly summoned for questioning, and with each session, he made increasingly contradictory statements. These inconsistencies led investigators to believe he was attempting to conceal the truth. During this period, Melania's family began to openly accuse Salvatore. They claimed he had always been indifferent to their daughter and suggested that he might have planned the murder in advance. These statements sparked widespread public resonance. After weeks of intensive investigation, the authorities concluded that the evidence against Salvatore Paralisi was sufficiently compelling to warrant charges. On June 19, 2011, he was arrested on suspicion of murdering Melania Rea. The primary motive put forth by the prosecution was the desire to avoid the exposure of his double life and to preserve his reputation, which could have been jeopardized if Melania had discovered the truth and revealed it. The arrest provoked a storm of emotions. Salvatore vehemently denied his guilt, insisting he was not involved in his wife's murder. He claimed that his romantic entanglements were not the cause of familial conflicts and that he genuinely mourned Melania's loss. However, investigators focused on a series of pieces of evidence that they believed demonstrated his involvement. The main piece of evidence was the contradictions in his statements. Salvatore claimed that at the moment of Melania's disappearance, he was with their daughter in the park. However, mobile phone analysis indicated that his phone was registered in a different area. This data did not align with the route he provided during the investigation. Additionally, it was revealed that the clothing Salvatore wore on the day of the murder contained traces of a substance similar to that found on Melania's body. These elements could suggest his contact with the body after his wife's death. Forensic experts also confirmed that the stab wounds inflicted on Melania indicated a burst of rage, aligning with the theory of a domestic dispute. Particular attention was given to the analysis of phone calls. Testimonies from Ludovica Peruzzi, Salvatore's mistress, confirmed that on the day of the murder, he was in contact with her and mentioned that his marriage was nearing its end. This created a motive for eliminating a wife who could obstruct his plans to start anew. Following Salvatore Paralisi's arrest, public opinion became sharply divided. Some supported him, arguing that the evidence was circumstantial and that the prosecution was based on bias. Others were convinced of Salvatore's guilt, viewing him as a cold-blooded criminal capable of murder for his own benefit. Melania's family took a firm stance. They publicly declared their belief in Salvatore's guilt. Melania's father and mother actively collaborated with investigators, providing additional information about their daughter's marital state. They asserted that Melania had complained about her husband's infidelity and experienced stress due to his cold demeanor. These testimonies heightened public resonance. By the end of summer 2011, the case had made significant progress. The prosecution gathered sufficient evidence to initiate a trial. One of the strategies employed by the prosecution involved enlisting psychologists to analyze Salvatore's character, emphasizing his propensity for manipulation. Meanwhile, the defense prepared to present Salvatore as a loving father caught in a tragic confluence of circumstances. The judicial proceedings promised to be both sensational and fraught with tension. The media diligently covered every step of the investigation, stoking public interest in the case. The nation awaited a fair trial to uncover the truth. The court hearings concerning Salvatore Parolisi commenced in the autumn of 2011, capturing widespread public attention as the details of the Parolisi family's life and the shocking facts surrounding the murder of Melania Rea unfolded before the eyes of society. The prosecution and defense engaged in a fierce confrontation, each presenting their narratives of the events. The prosecution built its case on a compilation of evidence. They presented a detailed timeline of the day Melania disappeared, demonstrating that Salvatore had repeatedly lied to investigators. Particular emphasis was placed on the analysis of phone records and the location of his phone, which contradicted his account of a family outing in the park. Prosecutors highlighted the motive: Salvatore's double life and his relationship with Ludovica Peruzzi. They contended that Melania might have threatened to expose her husband's infidelities, which catalyzed a conflict that escalated into murder. The presence of chemical traces on Melania's clothing and body also suggested a possible attempt to conceal the crime. Testimonies from Melania's friends and family bolstered the prosecution's case. Those close to Melania confirmed that she was distressed by her husband's behavior and expressed concerns about the future of their marriage. These testimonies reinforced the narrative of a prolonged conflict within the relationship. Salvatore Parolisi and his attorneys maintained that he bore no responsibility for his wife's murder. The primary defense strategy hinged on the absence of direct evidence linking Salvatore to the crime scene. The defense challenged the reliability of the mobile data analysis, emphasizing that such technology is not always accurate. The defense also pointed out that the DNA and other biological traces found at the crime scene were not connected to Salvatore. They argued that the true murderer had yet to be identified and that the accusations against their client were based on conjecture. Furthermore, the attorneys sought to portray Salvatore as a devoted father and a man incapable of committing such a brutal crime. They showcased photographs of a happy family and presented testimonies from colleagues who described him as balanced and dedicated to his military profession. Throughout the trial, dozens of witnesses, experts, and acquaintances of the family took the stand. One of the most dramatic moments came when Ludovica Peruzzi testified. She confirmed her relationship with Salvatore but asserted that she had never suspected him of being capable of violence. However, the fact of her connection to the defendant became a pivotal piece of evidence regarding his motives. Forensic experts presented an analysis of the stab wounds, indicating that the assailant acted with a clear emotional impulse, characteristic of domestic conflicts. This conclusion aligned with the theory of a quarrel arising from jealousy or the threat of exposure. The defense attempted to exploit inconsistencies in the testimonies of the prosecution's witnesses. For instance, one family friend claimed he did not believe the conflicts between Salvatore and Melania were serious, casting doubt on the narrative of a domestic drama. The trial captivated the entire nation. Italian media covered its proceedings daily, discussing the details of testimonies and expert analyses. Public debates emerged regarding the extent to which women are protected from domestic violence and the importance of timely responses to the early signs of familial conflicts. Many expressed condolences to Melania's family, particularly her parents, who were actively present at the hearings. Their grief and determination to seek justice resonated with viewers following the trial. After several months of court hearings, in January 2012, the court rendered its verdict. Salvatore Parolisi was found guilty of murdering his wife, Melania Rea. The court considered the totality of evidence, including contradictions in his statements, mobile data, and indications of his motives. The judges concluded that Salvatore's actions were premeditated. They noted that the crime was committed with particular cruelty, as evidenced by the numerous stab wounds. The court determined that the murder occurred during a moment of intense conflict between the spouses, fueled by jealousy, deceit, and threats of exposure. The key factors influencing the decision included phone data revealing Salvatore's lies about his whereabouts on the day of the murder, testimony from Ludovica Peruzzi, confirming his long-term relationship with her, results from the forensic examination indicating that the murderer was likely well acquainted with the victim. Salvatore was sentenced to life imprisonment. The court also ruled that he would lose parental rights to his daughter Vittoria, who was placed in the custody of Melania's parents. The news of the verdict sparked widespread public outcry. Many perceived the ruling as just, particularly in light of the crime's brutality. However, some continued to question Salvatore's guilt, asserting that the investigation may have been biased. Melania's parents expressed satisfaction with the verdict, stating that their primary focus would now be on raising Vittoria and preserving the memory of their daughter. Their statements, filled with sorrow and loss, touched many. Salvatore himself continued to assert his innocence during the trial. His attorneys announced their intention to appeal, claiming that the verdict was based on circumstantial evidence rather than direct proof. In 2013, Salvatore's lawyers succeeded in having the case reviewed. During the appeal, the defense sought to focus on the shortcomings of the initial investigation. They argued that the analysis of mobile data could have been erroneous and that the motive for the crime was fabricated. Nevertheless, in 2015, the Italian Supreme Court upheld the verdict of guilt against Salvatore but reduced his sentence from life imprisonment to 30 years. The judges noted that there was indeed a lack of direct evidence of premeditation, yet the brutality of the crime left no doubt regarding his culpability. The murder of Melania Rea continued to capture public attention even after the final verdict was rendered. It sparked widespread resonance within Italian society and raised numerous critical issues related to family dynamics, justice, and the protection of victims of domestic violence. Following Salvatore Peruzzi's arrest and conviction, the primary responsibility for the orphan girl Vittoria fell upon her grandparents, Melania's parents. They did everything possible to shield the child from the relentless media scrutiny and to provide her with a stable childhood. Despite their efforts, Vittoria grew up aware of the tragedy that had shattered her family. Melania's parents repeatedly stated that their foremost goal was to raise their granddaughter with love and respect for her mother's memory. They emphasized their commitment to protecting her from any influence from Salvatore's family. The case of Melania Rea prompted many to reflect on the hidden issues within families that outwardly appear to be thriving. Public discourse surrounding the case raised questions about the necessity for stricter measures to prevent domestic violence. Organizations dedicated to women's rights utilized the case to draw attention to the problem of concealed domestic abuse. They underscored the importance of early detection of danger signals, such as infidelity, emotional pressure, or control by a partner. Italian authorities began developing programs to enhance law enforcement's response to cases involving disappearances and violence. Special attention was given to implementing new technologies for tracking the movements of suspects and victims. Melania's parents and friends established a foundation in her honor, dedicated to supporting victims of domestic violence. They organized events aimed at preventing similar tragedies and actively collaborated with human rights organizations. The name Melania Rea became a symbol of the fight for justice and a reminder that even the most tragic cases can lead to positive societal changes. The murder of Melania Rea highlighted the critical importance of recognizing the early signs of relational problems. Her story serves as a cautionary tale about how the silence surrounding conflicts can lead to irreversible consequences. For Italian society, this case became not only a tragedy but also a lesson that helped initiate a dialogue about family values, responsibility, and the protection of victims of violence.